I never imagined the day would come when I'd feel like a stranger in my own family. It started with a nagging sense that something was off, little things, like hushed phone calls stopping when I walked into the room, or my parents exchanging glances I couldn't quite read. At first, I brushed it off, telling myself I was just overthinking, but the feeling grew like a shadow I couldn't shake. One evening, I overheard my mom on the phone, her voice low and urgent. She was talking about me, but not in the way a parent typically would. It sounded like they were making plans, decisions, and I wasn't part of the conversation. My heart pounded as I listened, the words slicing through me. "We have to do this for their future," she said. I wanted to scream, to run, but I stayed frozen. Days passed, and the tension in the house thickened. My parents acted like nothing was wrong, but I could see the strain in their eyes. I tried to confront them, but they brushed me off with vague reassurances and promises that everything was for my own good. It felt like I was trapped in a script they wrote without asking if I wanted to play the part. Then one afternoon, while searching for something in the study, I stumbled across a folder hidden behind some books. Curiosity mixed with dread as I pulled it out. Inside were letters, signed documents, and plans, all about me, but none of it had ever been discussed with me. Decisions about my education, my career path, even my relationships, all laid out like a blueprint I had no say in. My hands trembled as I read through the papers. They talked about enrolling me in a university I didn't want to attend, pushing me towards careers that felt suffocating, and even restricting who I could see. It was like my entire life was being choreographed from behind a curtain, and I was just a puppet dancing to a tune I never agreed to. That night I confronted them. The conversation was a battlefield of emotions, disappointment, anger, confusion. They insisted they were only trying to protect me, to ensure I had the best opportunities. But their protection felt like a cage, and I couldn't understand why they couldn't see that. In the following weeks, I felt the weight of their expectations like a physical force pressing down on me at every turn. Friends noticed I was distant, withdrawn. I'd smile, but inside I was unraveling, questioning where my voice had gone and if it ever truly belonged to me at all. I started writing in secret, a journal where I poured out my fears, hopes, and the growing resentment that simmered beneath my polite facade. Writing became my refuge, the only place where my thoughts were my own and not dictated by some invisible script my parents had written. But even then, the pressure didn't ease. Invitations to family dinners felt like interrogations about my progress on their plans. Every achievement they boasted about was a reminder that I was living their dreams, not mine. The silence between us grew wider, filled with unsaid words and broken trust. One afternoon, I found myself standing outside the university they chose for me, the campus sprawling and unfamiliar. The buildings were imposing, the crowds intimidating. I realized I didn't want to be there, that this path was theirs, not mine. The thought hit me like a punch. How had it come to this? How had I lost control of my own life? I called a close friend, voice shaking as I confessed everything. They listened without judgment, their support a lifeline in the storm of my emotions. For the first time, I felt seen, understood, like I wasn't alone in this battle between parental expectations and personal freedom. Determined to reclaim my story, I started setting boundaries, small ones at first, refusing to discuss my future in their terms, asserting my right to make decisions. It was harder than I expected. Their disappointment was palpable, and sometimes the guilt they laid at my feet was crushing. One night I found my parents arguing quietly in the kitchen. I overheard words that stung. "We're losing them," my dad said. My mom's voice cracked as she replied, "We just want what's best." I wanted to scream at them that what's best isn't what they decide without me, but I stayed silent, heartbreaking. The weeks blurred into a cycle of tension and fragile peace. I felt myself pulling away from the family I thought I knew, carving out a space to breathe and think. I started exploring my own interests, reconnecting with passions I'd set aside to meet their expectations. One evening, I packed a small bag and left a note on my bedroom door. It wasn't a rebellion, it was a plea for space and understanding. I needed time to figure out who I was without the weight of their plans pressing on my shoulders. As I walked out into the night, the cool air felt like a balm on my skin, a reminder that the world was bigger than the narrow path laid before me. I didn't know what the future held, but for the first time in a long time, I felt a flicker of hope, hope that I could write my own story, even if it meant breaking away from the past. Now every day is a step into the unknown. I'm learning to trust myself, to listen to my own voice above the noise of others' expectations. It's messy, painful, and often lonely, but it's mine. And maybe, just maybe, that's enough for now. The journey isn't over. The questions keep coming, and the wounds are still fresh. But somewhere deep inside, a spark is growing, a spark that tells me I'm not just a character in someone else's story. I'm the author of my own life, even if they tried to write the first chapters without me. And so here I am, standing at the edge of what was and what could be, ready to face whatever comes next with a heart that's bruised but unbroken.